Let's start with college football as the Michigan State Spartans get an unexpected day off tomorrow as the game against Maryland was canceled yesterday after 22 members of the Terrapins program tested positive over the last week for the coronavirus. As for Michigan, the Wolverines will be headed to New Jersey later today for a primetime showdown tomorrow night against Rutgers, a team that head coach Jim Harbaugh says is much improved from last year.
They look very physical, fast. They execute really well. Both sides of the ball.
Both teams are currently on 3-game losing streaks after winning their season openers in Week 1. Our coverage of the game begins tomorrow night at 6:30. The Seattle Seahawks open up Week 11 of the NFL season with a 28-21 victory over the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. That loss means Arizona now is just a game and a half ahead of the Lions in the chase for the final playoff spot in the NFC. Speaking of the Lions, today will be a final day of work for them as the game planning continues for Sunday's contest in Carolina against the 3-7 Panthers. The Pistons acquired backup center Dwayne Dedmon from the Atlanta Hawks yesterday in exchange for Kyrie Thornton and Tony Snell. It's been a very busy week for new Pistons GM Troy Weaver. That's the 5th trade he's made in the last 72 hours. Tiger Woods confirms on his personal website yesterday he'll team up with his 11-year-old son Charlie to play in the father-son event at this year's PNC Championship, which will take place December 19th and December 20th in Florida. Woods also confirmed on Thursday that outside of that event, he won't play again on the PGA Tour until early 2021. From the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Tony Ortiz. For more, stay tuned to 97.1 The Ticket and radio.com.
Live from the Jamie Samuelson Studio, it's Tony and Jansen on 97.1 The Ticket.
Thank you, TDO. Wow, 5 trades in 72 hours. Remember back in the day, if you were around during the glory days of the Pistons, I'm talking bad boys, used to call Jack McCloskey Trader Jack. We got Trader Troy here, man. He's not afraid to do anything, and, good. We love the philosophy here at 97.1 The Ticket. I can't think of anything really, recent memory, where all 3 of the primetime shows here, our show, Carson Anderson, and even Mr. Negative himself, the great Mike Valenti and Rico, where everybody was on the same page as far as the philosophy of the team. It's unbelievable. Everybody yesterday, yeah, we get it. We understand. Whether it'll work, we don't know, but we get it. We said it, Doug and Gator did, Mike and Rico, so I don't know if that's good news or not. We all agree with what the Pistons are trying to do. But
all starve for something bold.
That's
Make a change.
Exactly. Pistons would never get bold. We'd get somewhere.
I think we always do that with the new regime, don't you?
It depends.
I think everybody's like, at first, Bob Quinn, Decker, and people loved it. Build that line.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, you're right. Well, that was a pretty good pick, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of getting off track, Heather, you had a little problem yesterday.
So I totally did. So I love new technology, or technology in general, and especially the GPS. Right? Like I kind of depend on it. It's actually pretty sad because I use it all the time, even if I'm going to an area I'm familiar with. Okay, so I had to go to somewhere in Troy. I know Troy pretty well, okay? But I type it in my GPS, turn it on, and I follow the GPS. Instead of really thinking about where I'm headed, I just follow where the GPS tells me to go. And I got to my location just as I should have. And on my way home, I was on the phone for the first issue. So I wasn't even paying as close of attention as I should have. So I was on the phone and I realized, I think I just went in a gigantic circle. I typed in my home address. I'm like, okay, right, I'm right back to where I started. What the heck just happened? So I'm on the phone. I followed the GPS again. It took me a different way. However, I ended up exactly where I started again. I went in 2 huge circles. And then finally I got off the phone and said, something's wrong. Maybe it's the GPS. Okay, so then I tried to shut the GPS off and start it again. Still not deciding to just use my own brain and drive home. I still wanted to use the GPS. So I turned it off, started it again, put in my address, and I followed it. And then I decided, this is so stupid, Heather. Turn this off and realize what you're doing. And what had happened is that the exit to 75 North was closed, okay? So my GPS didn't really know what to do, and it kept taking me different ways. The first time I got on 75 south and had to get all the way off on Big Beaver again and just kept kind of going in a
Right.
circle. And then the other one avoided 75, but then kind of got confused and took me around like these back roads back to the same place I started. And it's one of those moments where you're like, this is so dumb how attached I have become to the GPS, because I could have easily gotten home by myself. I knew what I needed to do.
Now, did you use the one that came with your car? Did you use Waze or?
No, I use my phone, Google Maps.
Okay.
Yes.
Because usually I'm a Waze guy, and usually they're really good. Every once in a while, though, you put on Waze and it can't connect to the network. I'm trying to figure out why, and then you use Google Maps, which I don't think it's as good as Waze. I love using Waze. Usually when I know where I'm going, it's no big deal. But there are times where you're driving somewhere and let's say the freeway, like you said, there's an exit closed.
Right.
So you put on your Waze, and it takes. I remember once I had to go to an office in Southfield. I had to go to Capital Mortgage Funding for something, and it was during like rush hour. It was a meeting, and there was no way I was going to get there in time, and because there was traffic, it was crazy. I don't know, it was construction or whatever. So I said, I'm going to put on Waze and see what they tell me to do. They had me go through all these little streets in this neighborhood, and I went around the traffic, and boom, I was right there and on time. So I really think, for the most part, I think it does a really good job of letting you know when there's traffic, when there's an accident, a construction, and they reroute you. Now, there are other times where you're going somewhere, whether it's up north or you're taking a long trip, and you plug in, your directions and all that. I pull out of my subdivision. I say, well, why do they want me to go this way when I know it's just as fast as the other? And sometimes I'll just use my own, brain. But then you find out that there's a construction site like an hour and a half away that you didn't even know about that they did, and that's why they
Right.
took you a weird way.
It's normally really good, but also it's like a crutch. Like I should be able to just drive without using a GPS, especially when I'm going to Troy. I'm not going to an unfamiliar place,
No.
but it's something I've just learned to be dependent on. I mean, ever since I started driving, I remember my first GPS that I got, the like old school Garmin you stick on the
Yeah.
windshield, with the suction cup. I used that, and before that it was MapQuest. You go online and you print out and
Yes.
you look, it's like, okay, 7 miles, okay, keep track. Like I've always been dependent on a GPS, really.
I mean, who
And
has
it's
a
really
map?
bad.
Who has a map in their car anymore?
Well, I used to, when I would go camping, I would have one.
Right, I get that.
And I still have it under my seat in my truck because I do not like using my phone for directions. I don't even have it in my truck a GPS where I plug it in. What I use it for, and this will probably, you guys know I have a different view on a number of things. My kids are always after me. I'm the old school guy that says, I'm not going to ask for directions. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get there. So the kids will tell me, hey, Dad, just put it in there and it'll tell you the fastest way to go. So I will put it in and it'll tell me what my arrival time and say, I'm going to leave here at 7:09 and I should be home by, 7:24. So then I turn it off and I tell the kids, I'm going to get there by 7:22.
You make a competition.
I
out of it.
make a competition. I'm going to beat this, and I'm going to get there because I'm of the mindset, especially in Detroit, because I know the roads and everything so well, and I know you guys do too. Every exit that you come to, if there is an accident or if there's construction, you can get off and find a number of different ways to get there. And again, I make it a competition. I want to get there before that little voice tells me I'm supposed to be there.
I mean, you talk about, maps and you used to MapQuest, Heather. I remember, traveling cross country, used to go to AAA, okay?